Where are you at? How you been? Last time we talked, you had a kind of you're starting to have boundaries and learning how to keep them without being angry or offensive or actually being a victim type of stuff. So, how you been?
Yeah, well, that worked out okay. So we definitely kind of made up, and it ended up being good. Like, I definitely needed to say something, so she was able to respect that, and all in all, it kind
What'd
of
you
blew
tell her?
over for her. She just calls to tell me the same stuff she usually does.
Yeah, okay. See? But now she's like, I don't know. Did you tell her that you're just learning to have boundaries? It was probably terrible timing. You probably should have said something.
Yeah, and I also told her about the whole thing out of context, meaning that I really loved having her there and coming up to see me. It was just the timing or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
good.
That way she didn't feel uncomfortable for the future either. So, so that kind of blew over pretty well. I was worried about it, I guess, because I didn't stand up for myself well, and so
well, it sounded like you needed clarity.
After.
Yeah, and you needed your own clarity on what the heck. How'd this happen?
Right.
I don't know. Because you had the way you were positioned was, I can't believe she did this. She wasn't respecting me, and I was like, we need to look at the fact that you just need to be able to have your boundaries and respect the fact that your relationship before was that way. It's not like all of a sudden she doesn't respect your boundaries. You always let them be trampled on. So.
Right, yeah.
So she hasn't done anything wrong.
What's that?
So in relation to that, she's just doing the same thing she always does and hasn't done anything wrong. So anyways, but now you're finally saying something and Anyway, so that's good news. So how are things going with you, your life, your situation? Are your marriage counseling? Where are you at with your food, body image? Where are you at?
I did really want to focus on that a little bit today, but it's just I've been rushing around. I got my youngest off to a little preschool program for the summer to kind of get ready for kindergarten.
Oh, I am so proud of you.
My oldest, I'm really excited. He's coming back in a couple days. I'm going to go pick him up. He's finished his school. So there's a lot of, going on in the house, unpacking and everything. So I've just been kind of rushing around. I did join a gym, though, and go to a yoga class.
Awesome!
So that was super cool.
How did you like it?
It was great. It was really nice to be back doing something.
Did you do okay with your own body? I mean, how'd you feel? Because that can be a kind of a trigger for some people where they trigger. It's hard for people who are still in that body image mindset.
I have put on whatever weight I had lost in that short amount of time went straight back on. So I'm at the highest weight I've ever been. And I did notice a little bit of a pulling in my shoulder doing the yoga stuff that I hadn't had issues ever before with, but I'm sure the extra weight might have been, and just the lack of exercise in a while. So, I'll probably have to be a little more careful because I can be a little ambitious. I like adrenaline flow. So I'll kind of work out real hard and then
So that's your past. That would make sense based on your past. It shouldn't make sense for today. Does that really sound appealing to you? Does it sound?
You're coming in and out a little bit.
Does it sound appealing to you, that kind of extremism that you used to have?
Yeah, I can see how I did that. Yeah.
And why, sure. Right? And why? You see that?
No, I'm not sure if I see why I used to do that though.
Okay, so take a second and I want you to just observe that behavior from your past. And I want to see if you can just go there in your mind, hold the thought, go into that space, and recognize why that would be such an adrenaline rush.
What, working out in general?
To get that type of extremism. I think that's what you were saying. I could be wrong, but...
Yeah, I guess the yoga. For the yoga, I think I was just trying to stay up with the class.
Yeah, I'm talking about your past. I'm asking, the question I'm asking is, in the past, can you see why in the past you can get a little overzealous about exercise?
I don't see why, but I do see that I did that.
Well, I want you to go into it a little deeper and see if you can see why. Why would anybody
like when I'm in I guess just like getting in that zone of being like super, getting all that energy out. I'm not sure if that has something to do with it.
It can. Do you think maybe too it gave you a sense of accomplishment? Something that was independent of, gave you a break. It was like, I get a break. I get to leave the compound for 2 seconds. And then on top of that, it's also, and I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to be fit. So it matches some body image concept as well. And so why then it might become something you focus in on or become obsessed about in the moment. So it's like this all or nothing type, because in the allness of it, you're escaping something, right? You're trying to fix something that it's like it's like another shield or weapon you can use in terms of your own self survival, right?
Okay.
So I'm trying to help you get context. Go to your previous life. Go there. Can you see why any woman in that environment would be overzealous about exercise?
Yeah, I can see that sense of control.
Thank you. See, I'm so surprised you didn't get that, but you know what? That's okay. So you see it now. That's what I was trying to get you to go into.
For a long time, so I'm kind of.
Well, so when you take a step back, and you look at it, you can go, well, no wonder. And that would make sense. And of course I would do that. So it's not like a surprise. It's not really like, that's my personality type. No, you can. And then what is the likelihood now that you're going to do that?
Without the control. Now that I can understand it, right? I can see how I can just.
Well, do you want it to be that? Do you want it to be that overzealous?
No,
adrenaline
I really
rush?
just want, I think one of the things that I was also, which kind of ties in, but just the whole concept of taking care of yourself and not the numbing out, because I still notice with the emotional eating, it's like I kind of don't care, but then I do care, obviously, because of the body I live in, so I'm still, the whole concept of control, I don't know how it does seem all foggy to me.
That's okay.
How all that fits together.
But that's okay, because like for example, with your eating, if you're not hungry and you're saying I just don't give a shit, that's because you really don't care about the body in the moment. You only care about the body after the fact. So in the moment, what you're getting out of that food consumption is it's a form of protection. It's a form of self-defense. It's a form of you're using it to repress, suppress, remove, deny. Avoid, so you're getting this emotional benefit from the access to food, and that benefit is more important to you than your actual physical body.
Yeah.
That's the way it is in the moment. Even if you could say, well, but my body is important to me, it's not important in that moment.
Yeah.
So you can see in that moment, that's the moment you need to really hone in on, So for me, it was like, it was very similar in the emotional eating aspect for myself. In that moment, I needed freedom. I didn't want any more controls. I just wanted freedom. I didn't want to worry about it, think about it, have any more guilt. Freedom from the guilt and shame of eating that bad food. I just didn't want to. I was in denial. I'm done. I've failed. I've already failed. I benefit from the failure because if I fail, then I can eat anything I want and I don't have to feel bad about it because I've already failed. And because I do care about my weight and size and what's going on with the body, I will fix it later with some form of exercise, some form of purging, or some form of restriction.
Right.
So in the moment, however, in that moment, you are avoiding whatever it is in reality that you're not willing to tell the truth about. There's something you're not telling the truth about, and you're denying it, avoiding it, or afraid of what the truth might be. You might not even know what the truth is, but you're avoiding what it might be. Right? Because if it's something you can't handle, There's that feeling of I can't handle it, which is the really pivotal in terms of when fear manifests. If you can't handle whatever you're afraid of or what you're trying to avoid, if you can't handle what you're trying to avoid, what happens to your fear of what that is? Goes up. If you can't handle. So in those moments, there's a feeling of, I don't want that. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm afraid of whatever that is. Can you see where then going to some form of distraction or to avoid it, it's like procrastinating, right?
Right. And I kind of know, one of the things that I really struggle with is my two youngest boys argue and fight like so bad.
How old are they?
And they are 8 and 5. And they also both, I would say, have some entitlement issues, which I know is just parenting related. So just trying to work through that situation is definitely stressful at times.
Are you judging yourself with some of the entitlements?
Well, yeah, I guess all the stress that I went through in relationships and not being able to, like, I've bought all sorts of accountable kids programs and we're going to do chores and all this stuff and then not being present enough to, like, follow through with all the things that I wanted to do with the boys.
Yeah, but some of that is how much of your expectations for those boys is unrealistic.
Yeah.
I want you to go both directions because it sounds like, so you talk about, okay, I've done all these programs, the procrastinate or the, accountability program. So you've actually put emphasis and effort onto it. And is it really working? So you got to question the fantasy around what you expected from these programs or what you expect from children in general, if they're even, because what you might be doing is having an expectation for what you think the life should be like and how your kids should be, right? There's a fantasy and then your kids are not that. And so then you go to a means to that end and then the means to that end isn't necessarily working. And so then now what I'm saying is you maybe reevaluate your expectations. I don't know what's going on with your kids. I have no idea. But one thing I would do based on your pattern is you're holding them probably to some fantasy expectation.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think I can see how, I know me and my sisters fought really bad, and I kind of wish, like, my parents would have possibly stepped in more or had better tools. Not that I can give the whole situation grace, but I can see how possibly, and then my other, like, my two oldest, they never fought. My oldest was, like, kind of like just a bear, like a big teddy bear kind of personality, and so this is really the first time that I
wonder if they're competing. Your 8 and 5-year-old may have some form of competition going on.
Huge competition.
Yeah, so you just need to have this conversation. I know your 5-year-old is not probably doesn't get it. It could be the 8-year-old that might be instigating it. I don't know, but either way, they're feeling insecure, and that's what that is. And trying to be better than or one up or whatever that is. And your best thing is to just talk about it. Talk about what is competition, trying to be better than someone else, and that I'm not in that, but it sounds like you just need to go in and focus in on this with your marriage counseling. See if they do family counseling.
Yeah.
Just a thought, because it could be something so simple as better communication.
Mm-hmm.
As you're figuring yourself out too, you're going to find that the solutions are going to come to you, because in the end, the graciousness and compassion you have for yourself, you're going to want to teach that to your boys. And what that does is it takes competition and it makes it pointless.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Right. And so as you're recovering within yourself, you just have to trust and believe that as you come to accept yourself and you stop competing with yourself and these standards, you can see it like, I have to reach these standards. I have to be better than those standards. You're competing with some ideology, really.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
Right? As you stop doing that, and what it takes to stop doing that is number one, the truth, telling yourself the truth of the truth. and then giving it compassion and grace to be that it's good enough. The truth is this, and you know what? It's good enough, even if it sucks, fails, even if I'm a loser, even if I'm the worst, right? In terms of competition. Can you see it that? Can you see that? And so being able to actually love yourself, even if you're a loser, a failure.
Right.
You give it grace, and all of a sudden you're going to have that sense of ability that you can express to them that might then help this relationship change and evolve. And just trust that at some point, as these kids get older and as you relate to them differently, maybe that's all that needs to change. Because you're modeling, right? Maybe it's...
Yeah, so... Yeah, I can see how I definitely have that competitive drive. So.
Okay, that competition is called I'm insecure. That's another way to say it. I'm super fucking insecure. Okay. If you're taking it personally, competition, like for me, now, it used to be, this is how I prove myself.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Versus, this is fun, and I can lose and enjoy myself. So it's just fun to play a game, to play Frisbee, to go ping pong with my husband, and I'm okay if I lose. I can have the essence of the competition. Versus, I'm going to win, and if I lose, that means I'm a shitty person, and you're better than me, and I don't want that. That's different.
Right. And I can see that kind of the competition that with yourself, like having to prove yourself, like you said that. I can see how that's something that
as if it's defining you. This defines me. That's where people have issues, mental health issues, right? It defines me. You know, if I don't win, that means I am a loser. That means someone is better than me. So do you hear the narcissism in this?
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You're trying to survive by being superior than others.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think that does to how you relate to people?
Yeah.
You get disconnected.
Right.
You're disconnected because you're in competition, and then someone's better at you than something, and immediately puts this pressure on yourself, internally.
Mm-hmm.
It's just... So let's simplify this, because all of this stuff, these are all symptoms that go away, to be honest with you, when you actually go into what you're afraid of. So what are you dealing with at this point?
Yeah, I guess I do feel like I've just been rushing around so much just with all the getting the house, and just so much is changing in a good way. So I haven't had as much time to kind of sit and think, but I'm still not 100% sure. I guess I just haven't found the time to think about what I want to do in the future with myself, and I'm still also at a place where I just need to get the kids, settled and make sure that their school that they can transition well. So I'm getting all sorts of things together for them to get their tutoring and get an idea of what school's going to be like, just different things like that.
Yeah. So, that's exciting. You're doing that in Florida, right? You're doing that in, okay. That part to me is so exciting. I'm excited for you. Are the kids excited?
Yeah, I think they are. So they're getting there, and yes.
And I think that's understandable. It's understandable that you would need to feel like when their stuff is settled, then I can actually focus in on what I need to do. But that has to be settled first. That to me makes total sense.
Right. Yeah. Because I know if not, my time and attention will just get devoted to.
Yeah. Well, guess what, dearie? Anyway. That is a sign that you're actually doing pretty good right now. Like, you're functioning really well. The fact that you're capable of that to me is like, oh, she's doing so much better.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, you are. That's a big deal. Just your ability to put your stuff right now on pause means that we're at a place where you actually are, you're floating. You're not drowning. Personally drowning. Makes sense? And you're in a space where you actually can handle the thoughts around, I want to set this up for them and do this. Do you recognize that at all? Meaning, compare it to where you were when you first reached out to me.
Oh, yeah.
You were drowning, right? You were drowning, and when you're drowning, and how are you going to be able to devote yourself to thinking properly or even being aware of what needs to be done for your kids?
Right.
You can't.
Yeah, I've come a long way.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Like, what you just, everything I'm hearing, you're like, well, we got to do this. I'm like, holy shit, she's functioning. You're functioning. This is good.
Yeah, it does. It feels really good.
Fucking high five. I just want a high five across from Idaho to Florida right now.
Woohoo!
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, it is. It's
And
exciting.
you're
It's
doing
such a big
so,
change.
it is, and you're doing well enough. You're doing so well right now internally that you're now pausing yourself for a moment to focus on them. That's how well you're doing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I
awesome.
can see that. And I can kind of see there is still that back burner that's like, what do you want to do? Trying to think about, even conceptualize, what I would like to do. And it's kind of unclear, but I'm sure it's just because it's just not time for me to really.
I would agree. That's what I'm hearing. I'm like,
focus on
and I would,
myself.
I can understand why you would feel that way, because right now you're not honing in on it. You're not going into that space that requires you to be open, because you got to get this shit done first. It's priority.
Yeah.
This is, again, this tells me so much. This little bit of information, you probably wouldn't think, but I'm hearing this going, oh, she's doing so much better. This means that you feel secure in where you're at right now with yourself, that you can pause it to focus on your kids.
Right.
That's a big deal, just so that you know.
That's good. Yeah, I have felt like I also just really want to get, ask them how they're feeling, kind of work through their feelings, like just the whole concept of being able to do the same thing for my kids so that they can, feel more comfortable.
Yeah, no, and you want to get them integrated, and some of that comes with they're going to be exposed, and you're preparing them for reality in a loving way, and like, you can do this type of way, like, go kick it. You're going to have a great time. It's going to be whatever it is, and whatever it is, you can handle it. Whereas before, you're like, you can't handle it, and we're not going to do that. It's so different. So.
Yeah.
And so there is that part of this process for you with them, and finding out how they're going to respond, because you've never really allowed that to happen yet.
Yeah. And I also, I've been thinking more, just letting go. Like a lot of the homeschool ideas I had, I really loved them in theory. A lot of the natural learning stuff. But
I love that too, just because it's authentic, it's intrinsic, but that doesn't mean you don't.
Yes.
The fact that you're aware of that, it's like a nice blend of reality and what our system and system is like, but also having an awareness of keeping them in tune with themselves. Do you see how that's very, like, you have that benefit? Some people aren't aware of the alternative to this system. They don't know that in other countries, they have a completely different system that is far more successful with less mental illness rates, right?
Right, exactly.
So you have the benefit of having that knowledge, so your kids can integrate into this, but also have an awareness of themselves in an alternative. So that's pretty exciting. That's really exciting, because you're not going into our current system, which isn't bad. It's just, it is systemized, and there's lots of places that are really open-minded. And that's what you might find, is that some of your fears that you had about public school are coming from ignorance. That you didn't know that a lot of this stuff has actually evolved in the past 20, 30 years.
Right, yeah.
Anyways, I'm excited for that.
Sure. Yeah, so it is definitely definitely a big step for me to even open up to the school system in general.
Yeah, and just going through, because you're kind of walking in a vulnerable, what it felt vulnerable to you before. Now you see that there's benefits to this. It's more vulnerable to continue to do what you've been doing.
Right.
So,
and the whole concept of the balance and being able to weather whatever storms. I like that a lot. I like the resilience in that. So.
Yeah, and also give yourself the grace of knowing that you're doing this for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to feel like a little vulnerable. But you know what I want you to know is that if you believe your kids are good enough, strong enough, and can handle it, they can. If you don't believe that, they're going to feel that.
Yeah, and I can see what you mean there. And I like that you'll figure it out. Even for the little ones, to some degree, they're going to be the ones that are going to have to go into the classroom, figure it out, and do that. But they can do that, so.
You got it.
Yeah, that space.
Yeah, I taught swimming lessons for like a long time. Mm-hmm. I taught swimming lessons for a good 10 years. And I could always tell the kids who's had hover parents from the kids who didn't. And when I would get in the pool, they would go look at their parents to see if it was bad or get good. They wouldn't respond until after they looked at their parents and they saw their parents' response. And then they responded. So can you see where, so one of the things that I would have to do is talk to the parents and tell them, your response to the water is, you're basically teaching your children if it's dangerous or not. So if you're freaked out, they're going to be freaked out.
Right.
And and oftentimes, if the parents weren't there, which was always way, way, way better, they would go to me, right? And my response would be like, "Oh, that was awesome! You just put your face in the water! Oh my God!" And they would be like, "Oh, that was okay." And I would just be giving all this like, "Wow, good for you! That was tough."
Yeah.
And they, all of a sudden, you could just see their whole little posture be like, "That's right. I am Superman. I could do that." If the parent was there and the parent was going, it ruined everything. I couldn't, So basically in this moment, you're like that parent who used to hover and you're now leaving the room saying, I got to let the teacher go. I got to let my kid and and my fears I can no longer project onto that child because it's me that's insecure, not that child. Makes sense?
Yeah.
And what you're going to find out is your kids can swim.
Right.
Just because you're afraid to swim doesn't mean that they can't swim. Right? Makes sense?
Yeah, and I think a lot of my resistance was almost like wishing the culture was a little different kind of thing. And then putting
that's denying the truth. That's like being unreal.
Resistance and instead just being like, you know what, it's good. It's good enough. I mean, it's fine.
Well, yeah, why would you wish your reality to be different when it isn't different? This is the reality that it is in. And you're going to think about what you're doing, too, when you think that way. I wish the culture was different, which we could say that about the diet industry. The reality is this is what reality's like. So what are we going to do? Create a subculture and remove ourselves and have a little combine of and hold people?
But that's a lot of people's idea.
No, you got to be able to do it in reality as it's like a true strength and abilities to be able to reside in reality with the highs and lows and everything in between and to adapt. Right?
Yeah, that's what I think.
Plus, how do you know what's right for your kids?
Yeah, exactly.
I know. See, that's the other part of that. That assumption is you know what's better and you know what's right and and that comes from that ego.
Yeah.
Anyways. And of course, we could say there's all sorts of stuff out there that gives us differences. But the reality is you could move to that country. You could.
Mm-hmm. Right,
You can create your own country. This is what you try to do.
Right. Yeah, I can see the appeal that a lot of people feel for that, and
well, and I know your situation was really hard in Louisiana, the schooling there and how it works, and is unique, is super unique. That is not normal or average. And the only way for your kids to actually, the teachers, it's hard to keep teachers. It is really, really, from what I hear, very devastating, to be honest with you. I hear it's just devastating. No, the system does not work in that environment.
Yeah, that's actually probably one of the biggest reasons I homeschooled as long as I did, was because I didn't feel like I had other choices, and my family is from there, but...
Yeah, but now you're in Florida, and you found a choice, and it's working great. Yeah. Right, so you just never thought outside that box.
The other choice is extreme religious indoctrination through Catholic schools, which I went through, and I wasn't going to do that, so then I didn't have any other options. But, so this is exciting.
Yeah, I'm super pumped for you. So once this is all settled, and I love that you're also going into being available emotionally for your kids, that is also awesome. So everything you're saying to me sounds like, wow, she's just crazy improved. However, going back into your own self-concept and what you want to do, can you feel that will come to you? It's not something you need to worry about?
Yeah, I can see how I am trying to, or my old pattern was to kind of rush or feel like I have to, I guess rush, I would say was the best word for it, to find it quick, like be kind of aggressive with getting it done.
Why would that pressure have been there? Was it to prove yourself? What was it? What would it have been?
Yeah, I guess it was just, or to feel like I'm, I guess like doing the right thing or something. I got some concept still of possibly perfectionism or achievement.
Yeah, proving yourself. I have to prove myself. Yeah. Well, and if you don't have to prove yourself right now, what does that give you?
Oh, I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit.
I said, if you don't have to prove yourself right now, what does that give you?
Time to relax.
Yeah. Freedom to be realistic.
Yeah.
And don't you agree that's kind of where you need to stay?
Yes, definitely.
Be realistic. Why jump into some risky gamble? Why would you gamble like this again based on some concept that requires perfection? Why do that to yourself again? So, did you learn your lesson? Right?
I really hope so.
Well, it sounds like it, because you're just like, I don't need to rush into this. If you're okay with someone else having some weird opinion about what you should be doing and what you're not, I can't believe she's doing that and she should be doing this. Do you really care what anybody thinks at this point?
Yeah, no, I don't. I really don't. Yeah. I know that that's just not even important to the scheme of my life.
Well, because it's not their life. Anybody with a harsh opinion, it's not their life.
Yeah, and then I watched this really great little video. You've probably seen it. It was somewhere like 5 minutes for the next 50 years where Will Smith and like Matthew McConaughey go into have you seen that video with the, like what it means to define your own success and to just work towards that and don't hang out with the, people who bring you down, that kind of, all that stuff.
I haven't.
So I was thinking about just success to me. What does that mean? So, but all that seems kind of foggy at the moment. So.
Well, you're just kind of recovering, and maybe success is just being happy.
Yeah.
It's a state of being, not achieving.
Yeah. Yeah, because even in the video, they make it sound more like achievement oriented.
That's usually the case. No, that's usually what it is, and it is, it's like unconscious, I think. I don't think people realize what they're doing when they say, set your goals, strive to be better. They don't realize what that is actually doing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, let me, what are your thoughts? Well, okay. how do I say this? If you need to be better than this, what does that mean about your current state?
Well, I'm basically telling myself that I'm not okay the way I am.
You're not good enough. Yeah, it's not good enough. So it's basically the message is you're just not good enough. But can you see that this has been culturally a way of thinking for a very long time? Because it's, in essence, you could say religion is the same.
Yeah.
How to improve yourself.
Right.
Well,
yeah, it's all about improvement. Supposedly equals growth.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that when you're miserable and life's around you, not being reflective and introspective about it.
Yeah.
Right? Because you could say, okay, let's just say someone's addicted to drugs, or they're stealing something, or they're living somewhat a toxic environment. They're lying all the time. They're whatever your struggle is. The reality is that that's there. Whatever it is that's promoting those behaviors and thoughts in that environment is some external concept of being a better person really going to change the reality of what's going on inside?
No.
Sounds kind of superficial, like a superficial concept that is trying to make up for real internal work that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, so, for example, my kids are going to school. They're driven to do better, to get, inspired to get a better grade or whatever. But for example, Wyatt really wanted to get all A's and he worked his ass off to do it. That's intrinsically, he was motivated for whatever reason to do that for himself. My daughter Susie had the same intrinsic motivation. She ended up getting a C in math and that's the reality of the truth. So if we're saying you should be better, you should be an all A student, what does that mean when her reality in math is a C?
Yeah, basically then you're telling her she's not good enough.
And that right there is what she should devote her energy to, because it's lacking. Well, what if she doesn't really like to do math, which is probably why she's at a C. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't bring her joy. She doesn't get anything out of it. It's not like, exciting like it was for me. Math is exciting. I don't know why. And it is for Chloe too. I like to teach myself math. I taught myself the entire first algebra book one summer time. Because I realized I am better at learning when I teach myself than having to auditorily hear it from somewhere else or even see someone else do it. I need to do it. Anyway, so you're basically telling her what she has to do with her life because she's deficient in that area. That means she should get better in that area. And now her life isn't her own. She now has to prove it otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
Yeah.
I might be complicating this.
It's like the concept of, like, let's say instead of, like, floating on the water, you're a sailboat, so you want to have a direction. So it's the idea of that intrinsic, what motivates you from the inside, and figuring that out enough to know what you want to go out and do, kind of thing.
Well, here's the good news. So I want you to, instead of adding the sailboat, which is a dependency, I want you to think you have the option of swimming anytime you want, especially when it's calm water.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the coolest part about being autonomous and having this freedom, is you can swim anywhere you want when it's calm water. Reality is you're not in control of the water.
Right.
And your ability to float and swim are both awesome. The key is having appropriate timing, having appropriate awareness around the reality that we exist in. And you may want to swim when there's massive waves pushing you the other direction. You might as well just float on your back.
Right.
Does that make sense? So I am writing like friggin' molasses I'm writing, but it's occurring, these two books. I am dealing with a whole month I haven't written because of school being out. My yard does need work. If I don't work on the yard, I'm either going to have to pay for it, which I can't afford. So in this last month, I have been working on the weeding, getting grass from the beds instead of writing.
Yeah.
Big waves, I had to surrender that up.
Right.
Make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm adapting, but I'm still self-directing that book. I'm still it's all in my head. It's all in my motives. It's all in my studying and all of this shit and paperwork that's everywhere that I'm trying, I still have that autonomy. And and that you're correct. And you do have to find that balance between, okay, here I am getting freedom from being a slave to brainwashing, cultural dogma, religious dogma I'm compensating for with cultural dogma. There's all this dogma. And I'm trying to free myself, but yet I still live in this reality. We still live in a dogma-defined culture.
Right.
So how do we do this? What do you go? What I'm suggesting is to find a way to live in it, but not become it. Enjoy the freedoms of our luxuries in this country. We are super freaking luxury country. Enjoy the freedoms that we have for your kids to go to school, right? For you to get a job, for you to be able to change your mind. You get to change your mind.
Yeah. The power of choice is probably
it's huge.
The biggest thing.
So that's the other thing to really give yourself is realize that you're trying to figure this out. Do you have to know it all and do it the best right off the bat?
No, yeah, I can see how it's just, I just have to, go slower.
Yeah, well, you gotta, because you can change your mind. This is the key. I think you need to keep I could change my mind. I can change your mind about this book. I can change my mind. I have changed my mind about it so many goddamn times.
Yeah.
Because it's evolving, right? My knowledge is evolving. This work is evolving. My life is in reality. If I was in a vacuum and I could isolate reality and again, calm waters permanently, then duh, but that's not reality.
Exactly.
Right? So in this case, you've got to be able to say, okay, well, I don't know when the waves are going to hit. I can say, I want to go this direction, but as soon as I go that direction, if I find out that the water is freezing cold over there, freezing freaking cold, I don't have to commit to it. I can change if I really want to. If I find something that is challenging and for example, what if you want to become a yoga instructor and you want to do yoga training classes, right? And you find out that not only do you love yoga, you love the practice of yoga, and you love teaching yoga, but you only can teach 2 to 3 hours a week. Right. That's not enough income to support you, right? So you have the option of changing your mind and saying, well, I can do that, but you know what I should do is I should go teach preschool.
Right.
Maybe I don't have to teach my own kid. I love this environment. I have a lot to give. Maybe I should go and do what I need to do. Maybe if you work in a private school, you don't need to get certified.
Yeah.
Just, you know what I'm saying? It can evolve as it's happening. Because you can create a concept of what you think you want, but you're really not going to know until you're doing it and you're actually in it and you see it from the broader internal perspective. We have these external concepts of what something is, and then we have the internal reality of what it actually is.
Right.
The external concept of what we think it is, then there's the internal reality of what it actually is relative to our perception of it. Right? It's like, I want to go to college. Okay, yeah, whatever fantasy you have. Well, then you go into college and you're like, oh my God, I have to read that many chapters, and I'm reading this 5 chapters in 1 week of something I don't want to study. You learn so much when you get in it.
Yeah.
So you're kind of in that step of your stage of your life, and you got to give yourself so much grace ahead of time. Just give yourself grace ahead of time. I can change my mind. I don't have to be perfect. You don't have to perform for anybody. You know what I mean by that.
Yeah, and I do just, it's like, I do always feel that pressure that, somebody needs something. I need to do this for somebody.
Yeah, who are you doing this for?
Right.
Where is that influence? What is underneath there you might be repressing? You might be repressing a truth in this around who you're trying to impress or do this for. And who is it? Who are you trying to prove that you can handle this with?
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I think I listen to a lot of, the metaphysical, new age, whatever you want to call it, crowd. And I'm like, I want to be of service to others. I'm going to help the world. I'm going to do something. I'm like, everybody needs us. We all need to get on board now.
That sounds like proselytizing.
What's that?
That sounds like proselytizing.
What is that? Yeah.
Proselytizing is, I have something you need, and it's going to change your life. Can I tell you about it? Proselytizing.
Yeah.
That's what that sounded like. I'm So if it was real for you, so have you ever thought, so it sounds somewhat rescuer oriented. I'm going to rescue you. The other thing, it sounds like somewhat brainwashed, right?
Yeah, I kind of feel like I might just be repeating what I'm listening to, so I can see that.
Okay, so my question
is, I have these ideas on my own, or because if I had them on my own, I would just be happy to share something.
Correct.
Exciting.
Well, and it would be actually, you would be implementing it, and it would be, you would notice that it's unique. That you kind of have to be in a certain place to be open to that. You have to be in a certain degree of evolution then for this to make sense, right? It's no different than what I'm doing with the clients I work with. It only makes sense to people who are in a space, a real space of like willfulness, and to proselytize this work to other people would be really kind of arrogant and egotistical, don't you think?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Because it doesn't make sense for people who are that bad. This is radical. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, right.
And there's no need to proselytize it. If someone is in that deep state of like torture, they don't need to be convinced.
Right, exactly.
Make sense?
Yeah, I might just be listening to.
Well, I think it sounds like you're
saying that and then feeling like,
Who are you trying to prove yourself? Who are you trying to, what's pressurizing this? I want to go back to my original question. Who are you trying to impress? That question could be wrong in itself, like maybe you're not trying to impress anybody, but
more of that as more as I feel like, almost just like a love of, like, I guess I've always, and this may tie back, this could possibly tie back into my whole religious thing, but I do remember just always growing up just loving God. I just wanted to serve God. I wanted to have a mission. I loved God. I felt like called to be of service. So this whole concept that even though I'm not in a religious structure anymore, I still have that desire to devote myself to that.
So, so what I'm hearing is that devotion requires that you convert others.
Or just be there to assist if it was interesting. So, kind of.
It's still a form of conversion.
Yeah.
Okay, do you see that that's somewhat brainwashing?
Okay.
Well, and the thing is this.
Yeah, I see what you're saying with the conversion, right?
That's what I'm hearing, that there is a sense of conversion, that they're going to go from that and I want to convert them to this. And it's a preconceived concept of this. Is that correct or no? So the problem with this preconceived concept of this is it's something that has to be conformed. So there's a conforming concept you wanting them to reach.
I can see how that is a mistake, though. Like, I can see how I can see the energy behind that and what you're saying.
Yeah, well, the other assumption too in this is that what you have is better than what they have. There is a having, there is a connection, it's like I could be wrong. I'm just trying to really understand and grasp what you're saying, that you really do want to serve people. One thing to be understanding of too, if you actually heal yourself and balance yourself in a peaceful solitude, because it is in solitude, way, does that not do the same thing?
Yeah, like to my immediate family and whatnot.
Just anybody you come in contact with.
Right, yeah.
So if you're in a state of peace, if you're just in a state of peace as a human being.
Yeah.
Isn't that good enough?
Yeah, I do think so. I mean, I do think that's...
To just be loving.
One of the biggest.
Why don't you think of it this way? If you have this relationship with a concept of God, okay? My concept of God is all creation. Right? To include evolution, which is a form of creation. That to me is whatever that is, the universe, the essence of all things created.
Right.
If I can remain loving and compassionate in my state of in my own state of being, that is all I really can do. To convert other people into loving and compassionate beings, to convert them to that state, is like it's like taking claim or ownership.
Okay. Yeah.
This is actually a very hard topic to bring words to. I'm struggling to actually explain this.
Well, I guess for me, like, I know, well, first, obviously, we have our own will, so there's always everyone's will, but I can see how it's just,
what if your role is to just be loving?
In and of myself.
That's it. What if that's it? It has nothing to do with convincing, changing, or doing anything. That your role is nothing, actually, but to be that which you are, period.
Right.
This concept of conversion.
Yeah, I can see how
where that comes from.
Confusing that.
Well, I think what you might be doing is so the concept of God, and would you say that what does that symbolize to you? Is it lovingness? What is the symbol of that?
I guess, just, I don't know. I mean, I guess the first thing that comes is just that love of the Father, the love of all of, creation, and just...
That's what I meant. It's when I said, is it a sense of lovingness?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just a sense of lovingness.
Okay, so pause for a second. Just pause right there. Just stay with me for a second. So if that is what you feel called to serve.
Right. Then I would be that myself.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Then you just become that within yourself.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? Like I want to...
other people still in pain or suffering, but
okay, so how does that translate to someone in pain and suffering?
Just a sense of relief for themselves or...
Hold on a second. So I want to go back to if you feel called to serve in the essence of God to you is this lovingness. Okay? And so you want to live in that state. You want to be in that state. You want to live in it. You want to be in that. And obviously in your reality. There's a reality in there.
Yeah. And I do understand there's balance. So it's not all like loving with no boundaries.
Of course. That's why I said, and you're in reality. But in essence, there's a lovingness right there. That's not codependency, which is what you thought it was. We're not talking about codependency.
Right.
We're not talking about rescuer, victim, someone's persecuting the victim and you're a rescuer. Codependency. That's called proselytizing. Conversion. That's the rescuer in the codependency drama triangle. So in your mind, this whole concept of God is really a sense of lovingness and graciousness. Okay? So now there's someone you come into contact and they are suffering.
Yeah.
What do you have to do with that?
I need to be kind.
That's it. All you got to do is have compassion.
Yeah.
That is what you're called to serve. You're called to serve to have compassion. You're not called to serve to rescue.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You feel the difference? Did that help you kind of get a sense of the difference? Because I think when you were like, I really am called to serve, that you're thinking, I can rescue people.
Right, yeah.
And I'm like, that's a lot of freaking work when all you got to do is have compassion. Why can't you just have compassion? That's the act of it in process. You're actually doing it.
Yeah.
Versus converting people into some concept. You just have compassion.
So I can see how my religious upbringing is sort of...
Well, you got to question some of those things. You just have never questioned some of those concepts. You know that they brought you a sense of excitement. Like, I want to do that. But you never really looked at, do you really want to be a rescuer? Isn't that what you've been doing?
Yeah, no. And it doesn't work anyway.
Yeah, so what you need to see is what is it that I actually... Besides the sense of purpose and feeling like I have a meaning, I have a purpose, because that's also what I'm hearing you want too. I want a purpose. Well, what if your purpose is to just be loving?
Yeah.
That's it.
And I guess I can see how my mind was like, well, how far does my reach have to be good enough with just being loving? Is like just loving to my family.
Well, why don't you start with yourself?
Like, I can see how my mind was actually...
Well, you're not even... You just start by being loving to yourself. Just start there.
Right. Yeah.
Because if you can't really hone in on what that is, how are you actually going to be able to some degree, share that?
Yeah, and I can see with the emotional eating and stuff, I'm still... in a sense of denial.
Yeah. Good job. So what do you think the work is from this point forward? Where's the work going to move?
For me, it's to sit with my own feelings.
Yeah, and love and be that for yourself. So you're already jumping ship, trying to help someone else's ship when yours is sinking. Look, I can help you, but don't look at my ship even though it's sinking. I will totally help you with your... No, this was good. This was hard. This was good because this is like minutia stuff that's important.
Right.
It's like, oh, now you're connecting some dots. Like, yeah, you need to sit. You need to remove that food. Not because you need to do it for your body. Your body can handle food. It can handle it for a couple hundred more pounds. So I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned that you're hiding your own true self neglect. You're actually repressing that there's some issues here and you're avoiding, denying, and you're not really loving them. You're not the lovingness that you want to convert people to. You might want to try it with yourself first.
Right. Well, how do I do that as far as when I sit with myself? And like, let's say I'm like, okay, I'm not, like I've heard people say just wait 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Or
well, that's
possibly
No. What I'm going to suggest you do is when you feel those feelings, whatever they are, because at this point I can assume there's fear, insecurity, inadequacy, a sense of I'm losing my shit, or I don't know what to do, or something bad's going to happen. Whatever that feeling is, instead of immediately going to leave it, avoid it, repress it, deny it, and you need to sit and stay in it and actually call it to come in. So the way I process this is I don't just have people sit there for 20 minutes and hope to God those feelings go away. What I'm telling you to do is understand it, get to know it, have conversations with those emotions. You really want to understand why they're there. What is this connected to? So you really need to have an open-minded conversation. The only way you're going to do that is if you actually allow those emotions to come in, even if you're scared of them. And the truth of the matter is you probably feel, when you feel these emotions, you're scared of them and you don't think you can handle them.
Okay.
That's why you're bolting. I'm going to run away. I'm going to repress them. I'm going to deny them. I'm going to just avoid this because food will make it go away. So when you're doing that, so the first thing I want you to do is to recognize and commit to yourself that if you're not hungry, you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
It's like saying I have to face the truth. I'm facing the truth. Face the truth. And it's going to feel scary. So
yeah, I can see how I'm resisting that.
Okay.
My next step.
So how long do you want this process to take?
Yeah.
You want to draw it out slowly in denial, or do you want to just face them now while you're in this process? Now.
Right.
In so far the work that we've done together, what has happened the moment you face something that you've been...
Oh, it goes away.
It's like immediately gratifying. It's actually gratifying. Even if it's scary, there's a degree of like, wow, okay, not only is there some clarity for me, I actually have a sense of what I need to do.
Right.
And it feels so good because you're actually addressing the issues and you're no longer, tied to all the ways you need to keep them hidden.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not even 100% sure what I'm...
Well, you're not going to be.
Right now.
How are you going to know? How do you know? How are you going to find out? That's why I'm like, whatever it is, you're not going to know until you actually address it.
Yeah. No.
So let's address it. That's your challenge. That is your challenge for today. I want you to really think about what it is you're avoiding and how that's just drawing out some of the suffering that you're still having.
Mm-hmm.
And how much longer can you avoid this shit?
Mm-hmm.